Welcome to the Anti Illuminati Party, Anti New World Order Party online forum. This is a free conference call. It is being recorded, and we're going to be downloading it onto YouTube as well. I am your host. My name is Daniel Leach. I'm joined by John McGuire and also Kevin Anderson. Tonight's program will be covering and highlighting some posts from the group. And first, it's going to be the words from Edward Snowden reported by John McGuire. Secondly, we're going to have Lyme Disease reported by myself, Daniel Leach, covering a story by Kay Karen Lambert, who posted that a few days ago. Third, we're going to be covering a newspaper cartoon from 1934, posted by Joe Cordiano. And fourth, we're going to be covering Jade, helm extraction and red list, reported by Kevin Anderson, and that was actually posted by myself a few days ago. And anyways, the Anti-Illuminati Party is committed to improving the lives of every citizen of the world through principled advocacy, mass outreach, and this free conference call is an online meeting designed for screen sharing. So if you're listening to this and you want to see what we're talking about, we're going to be presenting the articles on our forum here, talking about them, and our main topic of the evening is going to be the Patriot Act and what's going on with that lately. So, Mr. McGuire, we're going to cover what you are talking about here with Mr. Edward Snowden and what's going on with Mr. Snowden.
Yes, sir. I was just thinking of something. I've been surprised by how I've been going to community college for the past year now, and I've been surprised by the things that I find in the libraries there. Not very establishment, some of them. I think it's interesting, and a lot of these librarians are Christian. Anyway, so like when I was at Monroe Community College, I saw a book about Edward Snowden, the book that had been published by the journalist with the London Guardian. And so that was pretty surprising to me. I got it out, read some of it, scared everyone with it, and then returned it. I didn't read it all. But, it's pretty amazing. Anyways, getting on to this. Well, before I came across the Snowden thing on my feed, I saw on entrynews.com, it says, U.S. intelligence officer, quote, every single terrorist attack in U.S. was a false flag attack, end quote. I don't know how long a time frame he's talking about here, but that's pretty interesting coming from, and I'll get his name. But I think this ties in, is relevant to what we're talking about. Just another angle, another pretty good testimony, because he's freaking CIA saying this. This is oh golly.
So the name of the article that you're going to be talking about this evening is Edward Snowden, NSA Reform in the U.S. is Only the Beginning. And that says it's an exclusive interview from Moscow. Snowden cautions that more needs to be done to curb NSA surveillance 2 years after his disclosure. Now, do you want to go right into the video and then talk about the article, or do you want to talk about the article and present the video?
Let's roll the video.
All right, great. Let's see what Mr. Snowden has to say.
Truly unfortunate amplifiers of the tragedy of narrowing your rights. In this context of terrorism, it's the fact that we know these programs don't help engage terrorists. In the United States, we had programs appointed by the White House, 2 different independent panels with access to classified information. That looked at these programs and found that in not a single case had mass surveillance produced information that made a concrete difference in the terrorism investigation. We know in the Charlotte Hebdo attacks, we know there are attacks in Australia, we know attacks in Canada, all of these individuals were known to government in advance of the attacks. It wasn't the fact that we weren't watching people enough. It was the fact that we were watching people so much that we did not understand what we had. The problem is that when you collect it all, when you monitor everything, you understand nothing. And that has to change.
Well, that was a great video. I definitely happen to agree with him, man. Go ahead. Give us your commentary on this article and what your take on it.
Well, I don't have much to add to what Snowden says because, of course, he's been on the inside. And but I'm trying to find, this really went well with that statement of his. So I'm trying to figure out who the heck. They've got his picture twice, but they don't know how to caption pictures apparently. So I don't know what the frick his name is. But CIA guy is saying, well, here's something that a former British Foreign Secretary Robin Cook said. He said, the truth is there is no Islamic army or terrorist group called Al-Qaeda, and any informed intelligence officer knows this. But there is a propaganda campaign to make the public believe in the presence of an intensified entity representing the, quote, devil, end quote, only in order to drive TV watchers to accept a unified international leadership for a war against terrorism. The country behind this propaganda is, guess.
That would be the United States of America.
That's right. Woohoo! We're the leaders of lying. So, yep. Anyway, that's according to, again, Robin Cook, former British Foreign Secretary.
Wow, that, honestly, not surprising. Not surprising to say the least at all what's going on with this. It looks like they have another Edward Snowden video here. Would you mind checking it out with us?
Oh, what is it called?
It doesn't have a topic. It says, my work is not finished. Let's play it and see how long it is.
I said a couple times now that one of the most significant changes between before 2013 and now is I actually work much harder now than ever before. I get a little bit less sleep. I have to get up a little bit earlier. But at the same time, I feel very good about the sense of contribution that I feel. Being able to help, being able to do something, being able to leave behind better things, being able to say that you are a small part of something good is meaningful. When I think about the future, I think about the fact that there's so much to be done. My work is not finished. In fact, I would argue that it's only begun. Yes, we have made a difference. Everybody who is working to reform these bad laws, everybody who is trying to change these bad policies. This is not about running somebody out of office. It's not about bad people. It's about bad systems. It's about how we make sure that these things are better going forward, not just now, but always. And this is going to be a long road. It means changing not just laws, changing not just systems, but values, not just within our own countries, but around the world. Because even if we get a glorious sort of enlightenment in, for example, the United Kingdom. They pass extraordinary reforms that enshrine rights in new ways, ensure that there's a robust democracy that can't be undermined, and that you have a right to privacy that you can rely on. As soon as your communications go outside the border of your country, they can be preyed upon by every other country in the world. We have to ensure that these rights are enforced not just through law, but through our technology and standards that apply even outside our borders.
That's I can't agree more with the guy. He seems to be right on with at least what he's saying as far as needing reforms and stuff like that. I definitely agree with him because obviously anybody that's paying attention to understanding what's going on in the world right now knows that this system that we're living in is definitely screwed up. And so I give the guy props for trying to make a better world.
Oh, I figured out the page if you want to hear about the headline here. It's entrynews.com, and this is the latest whistleblower. His name's David Steele, a 20-year-old a 20-year Marine Corps intelligence officer, so he's like 40 or something, and second highest ranking civilian in the U.S. Marine Corps. He is a former CIA clandestine services case officer, and this is what he had to say. Quote, most terrorists are false flag terrorists or are created by our own security services. In the United States, every single terrorist incident we have had has been a false flag or has been an informant pushed on by the FBI. So like a patsy, I guess. In fact, we now have citizens taking out restraining orders against FBI informants who are trying to incite terrorism. We've become a lunatic asylum. That's a high-ranking guy.
Okay.
So, and not much to add. Just hear it.
Yeah, that's definitely, it's interesting is because our next article that we are going to talk about is a post that was put on the site not long ago, and it's a cartoon. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but
oh no, that's a lot of it. Pretty much right there. Geez, what else? What else did I see? That's basically the part of the matter here. Oh, also, yes, thank you. I just remembered. Sorry. The Senate and the House, they're doing stuff. They were let me see if I can get this. So the Senate's Republican majority, they are keeping the Patriot Act afloat. But then there was something with the NSA that they didn't extend another 2 months. Remember that? They were going to talk about extending, I don't know, Fox News did a cruddy job wording it, but that's all I can articulate on that. But,
well, what's been going on is the Patriot Act recently, well, we're going to get into the Patriot Act actually at the end of the program, but that's going to be our main topic for the evening. So let's get and cover these articles before we get into the main meat of the program here, and we can definitely talk about that. All right, so we're going to go into our next topic here, our next article. This was posted by Joe Cordiano. I'm not sure exactly. Cordiano. I think that's how you pronounce his name, but I haven't personally met him, so I'm not sure. But he's one of our members that's been posting. There's a couple things that I want to share from him and what he posted here. First, I want to read his commentary on what he said about the cartoon. And this is what he said. This is what Joe said. This is too obvious to ignore because things had transpired exactly as this newspaper cartoon from 1934 depict. It was, in fact, prophetic. You can debate all day until the crows come home whether or not the protocols of the elders of Zion was an actual plan by elitists to control, subjugate, and enslave the planet for their god Lucifer. But there is no denying history has unfolded just as that is described also. Okay, so obviously they have a plan. Do you? And that's basically why I decided to choose this particular cartoon here, is because at the end of that cartoon, or at the end of his statement, it says that they, and he's talking about the Illuminati, the New World Order, the global controllers, that they have a plan. And the question is, do we have a plan? Do you personally have a plan to try to make it through this? I know there's a lot of people that are Christian that they, that believe that they're going to be saved or raptured from the tribulation period, which is fine. But right now we're facing a tribulation period in our country, and Jesus isn't coming back right now. So it's up to us to try to figure out what we're going to do as people in this nation to try to prepare for the worst. And, like the Boy Scouts always say, be prepared. And I guess on our next program, that's something I'd really like to discuss, is what we can do to prepare for what's coming. Because, obviously we could see there's a tsunami coming, and are we going to stand there and watch it, or are we going to start getting ready for the big wave? And I think that's coming shortly. But anyways, I'm going to describe this cartoon. And it's a guy, and he's sitting down at this, it looks like he's sitting down somewhere. It doesn't really have much of a background, but he's holding up what looks to be a big sign on his lap, and it looks like he's drawing it or writing it. And it says, Plan of Action for U.S., underlined. Spend, spend, spend. Under the guise of recovery, bust the government. Blame the capitalists for the failure. Junk the Constitution and declare a dictatorship. So I agree with what Joe was saying in his commentary, that this little cartoon is pretty prophetic from 1934 was when this cartoon appeared in the Chicago Tribune. I tried looking that up online, and I couldn't find this actual cartoon. So what I did was I clicked on the link, and we'll click on that here, and it takes you to another Facebook group. And I guess I wanted to give credit to this other Facebook group. And the Facebook group that they have it's called Diplomatic Immunity, Learn It, Earn It, Live It Photos. So we're clicking on, this is what their site looks like. And I happen to, be looking around on this site here today, and I thought it was pretty interesting. So I thought I'd share it with our audience here. And it was launched back March 25th, 2014. So not much longer, not much time has passed since it was launched. But it's called Learning to Exercise the Right of Self-Determination. That is the mission. The impression is internal law. It says this is a free educational website which you can learn about sovereignty, diplomatic immunity, sovereign immunity, diplomacy, international law, exercising the right of self-determination, and keeping in international public and private order while staying in the good graces of the government. You are under until after you come of a citizen state, or citizen status, excuse me. This site will also expose some of the many gurus to avoid, which often lead to court experiences, fines, and even arrest and imprisonment. Anyways, it goes on to copyright. It gives a law from the Cornell University, and it says copyright material here is used, which falls under the fair use provision, Code 107, Provision 17. Under the provision, no claim against the founder can be made regarding the use of copyrighted material or other intellectual property on this web page. And it seems like this guy's on the ball, and he knows a little bit about law, which is really good, because this is the kind of things that people need to know about when it comes to, defending your rights and knowing, basically, you got to know the laws in order to avoid getting, how would I say, in big trouble. Because a lot of times, what I learned in criminal justice in high school is ignorance of the law is no excuse. So you could say, oh, well, I didn't know, but you're still going to go to jail, and that's not going to save you when you say, oh, I didn't know. So anyways, that was that particular article there. And our next, so that was sent in by Joe, how would I say his name again? Joe Cordiano. All right. We're looking for our next, how would I say here? Sorry, I lost my script here where I was reading from. Anyways, we're going to talk about the next subject on tonight's program, and that is going to be an article that was posted by hold on, it's right here, number 3. Oh, an article that was posted by Kay Karen Lambert. Anyways, the story is about Lyme disease. And she posted an article which I thought was really cool. And anyways, she happens to talk about a book. And I'm trying to find the book here off of my script. Oh, here we go. We are back at the book here. Oh, come on now. All right, the name of the book is Lab 257. Now, the reason they call it Lab 257 is there's an island. It's called Plum Island, and it's in New York, right near New York City. And it's basically been the home of the basic government lab where they test diseases, like for the Animal Disease Center off of Plum Island, and it's in New York. It's a federal research facility dedicated to the study of diseases. It's part of the DHS, Doctor of Science and Technology, and it's been there since 1954. And it's basically supposedly had the goal of protecting America's livestock from animal diseases during the Cold War. Anyways, they got into testing biological weapons from animals, plants and animals. And they wanted to target livestock in Russia, supposedly. At the time, they were the greatest enemies during the Cold War. And during this time of, how would you say, biological weapons development, and around 1975, which was about 40 years ago, there was a new disease that had just come out of Plum Island, and it was named Lyme disease. And that was because the place that it was developed in Plum Island is like Lyme. The name of the town is called Lyme. So that's where the name Lyme disease comes. And so basically there's a conspiracy behind it, is that the government developed this Lyme disease and it inserted it into ticks, and that biological weapon, these ticks, escaped from the weapons center and got into the general public. And so that's basically the premise behind the book. It goes into the history of this whole Plum Island. And anyways, they got a little video here for us to watch. It's about 3 minutes long, and I thought it was a pretty good presentation. And it's called The Conspiracy of Lyme Disease. And here we go. We're going to play this for you guys.
All right.
In the U.S., Lyme disease is largely transmitted by a bite from a tick infected with bacteria in the Borrelia genus. It was first identified in 1975. In 2009, just under 40,000 cases were reported, an increase of about 94% over just 5 years. However, according to CDC epidemiologists, these reported cases are underestimated 6 to 12-fold. They believe the number could be as high as almost 500,000 cases in 1 year. There's a general agreement in the medical community that early Lyme disease exists and that it can be treated with a 2 to 4 week course of antibiotics. But when it comes to chronic Lyme, which is to say Lyme that wasn't detected in the early stages and has become a persistent, longer-term condition, there's huge controversy. Here's why. In the 1980 case of Diamond versus Chocolate Barty, the decision was made that a scientist was able to patent an invention even if the invention was alive. One implication of that is that companies can patent potential vaccines and stand to make a lot of money cornering the market on a cure for a disease. Also at the same time, managed healthcare was on the rise. So right after Lyme was discovered, you had a landscape where pharmaceutical companies saw a new disease as something they could profit from, and rising massive insurance companies finding new and better ways to keep their profits as high as possible. And if there's one thing an insurance company hates because of how much it costs them, it's a chronic disease. In 2006, the Infectious Disease Society of America, or IDSA, issued their guidelines for how Lyme patients should be treated and how the disease should be researched. The guidelines explicitly denounce chronic Lyme. If you go to their website, you'll see that they basically say it doesn't exist. More than half of the IDSA panelists that wrote the Lyme guidelines, including the panel chairman, have obvious conflicts of interest, including financial interest in drug companies, diagnostic tests and patents, and consulting agreements with insurance companies. And researchers and scientists with evidence in support of chronic Lyme were intentionally excluded from the panel. Because of the IDSA's Lyme guidelines, insurance companies have the right to deny coverage for the treatment of chronic Lyme, which is a long-term course of antibiotics. Doctors have lost their practices for diagnosing and successfully treating patients with chronic Lyme. The longer Lyme goes untreated, the worse the symptoms can be. Blindness, arthritis, and many neurodegenerative diseases can all be present. Chronic Lyme can also be fatal. And despite many people having died and thousands continuing to suffer, most of the medical community refuses to acknowledge chronic Lyme's existence. I know the controversy of antibiotic use and the rise of antibiotic-resistant diseases, but I also know that chronic Lyme exists and that long-term antibiotic treatment works. I've seen it firsthand, and I've also seen how awful Lyme can be. And furthermore, how doctors will turn their backs on patients out of sheer fear of losing their practices. People are suffering and dying from this disease, and doctors aren't allowed to treat them, and that is the crime of Lyme disease. And it all comes down to one bottom line, money. To learn more, watch the documentary Under Our Skin. This week, please, let's talk about that.
Now, the reason I chose this particular article, I would say, that was posted by Lyme disease.
Lyme disease in Europe.
Oh.
How to check whether you are infected with Lyme disease using...
Sorry about that, guys. I forgot to pause the video. I thought it was just over with. But back to my point. The reason I chose this particular article is it had more meaning to me when I was going through the articles is the fact that where my mother lives in Minnesota, they have lots of ticks. And the last time I was out there in Minnesota, you could not leave the house without getting ticks on you. You'd walk through the grass and the ticks would be on your pants. I mean, you got animals and dogs and stuff, and, they all got, little ticks that run in them. So you pretty much can't live there without being surrounded by ticks, and I think it's horrible to live in the fear that if you get bit by one of these little things, you're going to wind up getting Lyme disease. I mean, my mom got bit by one a couple of years ago, and the head of it is still in her back, So, yeah, I mean, it sucks to realize that your own government is developing biological weapons that are escaping these facilities, whether by accident or on purpose. It just seems pure evil. You know, when are these people ever going to learn to stop doing their mass evil? It's disgusting, and I just want to do everything I can to try to stop them and expose them for practicing this horrible, excuse me to say, I call it witchcraft or demonology, demonism. But anyways, that was that article, and we are going to be going on to our next and last article before we get into our main topic. The next article is going to be by Kevin Anderson. He's going to be reviewing Jade, helm, restraction, and the red list, and the story. I posted this the other day. Go ahead, Kevin, give us your take and give us your little report on this Jade Helm article.
Sure. Okay. Well, the whole idea of this came from Nazi Germany. What it is, the Jade Helm red list, it's a plan to extract anyone who could be a potential threat or to political means, or that can form a militia to fight against the tyranny that's coming. Yeah, so it's plans to round up potential resistance leaders, the Jade Helm red list. Okay, and this is where they got their ideas from. Was in pre-Holocaust Germany, Jewish businesses were signed out for physical destruction in an event called the Night of Broken Glass. There was another, I believe, a Jewish word for it too, but I couldn't pronounce it. It started with an H. Hundreds of Jewish businesses were attacked on that night. When the Holocaust began, there were selected neighborhoods that were targeted for extraction. They were sealed off, and systematically arrests were carried out. The Jade Helm plans they appear to be following the same strategy. They want to perform a one-night quick extraction, close off a city, get it done, people don't know what's going on. And their first tactic that they plan to use is going to be cell phone services blocked and cut off, so victims cannot contact others or attempt to alarm anyone of what's going on. And they refer to it as the signal strikes in the ARSOF documents. Yeah, that's ARSOF documents. They're referred to as surgical strikes. This will be the night the extractions take place, the night where they cut off the cell phone signals. The second plan they're going to do are the Coleman attacks. They're going to round people up from shopping malls, certain schools, sporting events, and it's going to be done by using ISIS and MG-13 sleeper cells. And they're going to use them to help round up these people that they've selected out. Now, all the people that are being selected out, they're all potential threats to the government. All the highest targets are believed to be people with a lot of military experience who can form a militia into a fighting force. The targets are vets from more modern wars such as like Iraq and Afghanistan, because they're well trained in guerrilla warfare. And also, the next target would be people with any sort of military or agency experience with counter use of biological and chemical weapons. So they plan to, if they could take out these former Marines or people that have this knowledge of guerrilla warfare or biological or chemical weapons, they want to take them out because they pose a potential threat if they can form a militia with the citizens to fight back. I don't know how accurate this information is, but it's interesting. Read and look up later on your own time if you have the time. The name of the documents are called ARSOF documents, and they have specific details on the steps they want to go in disabling the cell phones and rounding people up and cutting off the cities in more detail. So on your own time, anyone listening, if you want to look it up, it's ARSOF document, and it has a lot of information about their further plans and rounding people up and getting rid of cell phone signals and things of that sort, and the main targets of ex-military people and people trained with guerrilla warfare and biological and chemical weapons.
Very good. I think this is some pretty interesting information. I mean, I've personally been following a lot of this stuff for a while. Can you tell us anything about the Jade helm as far as anything? Do you know anything about that at the moment, or?
I don't particularly know too much about the subject. I just read the article, and all I know is from what the article explained. They didn't go too much into the Jade helm itself. They were just talking about that they plan on mimicking the tactics used by Nazi Germany, and they explained what some of their tactics would be and who they're going to be targeting. They didn't really mention anything else about it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, Jade helm, I'll just give you a quick synopsis on Jade helm. Jade helm is a government operation. It's a drill. They plan on running from July, I believe, 15th to September, I believe, the 15th. And It's covering basically half the country, and it's got lots of military. It's the largest military drill in American history on American soil. We know that there are going to be United Nations troops involved in this from leaks that have come out. My understanding is they're also going to be doing this not just as a drill, but doing some live actions with this. So there's a lot going on with Jade helm right now. A lot of information to really pay attention to. That probably will be one of our topics in the next couple of weeks here, just basically because it's such it's right around the corner. I mean, it's May right now, and June, July, that's not very far away. One thing that I could tell you is that Texas, the state of Texas, has actually, the governor of Texas issued a declaration to the, the National Guard of Texas, that while these drills are going to be performed by the federal government, that the National Guard for Texas will be observing. And they were told that if anything goes down, that the National Guard are to act in the interest of the people. So, I mean, this is getting pretty serious, and we're finding out also that there's been a lot of shutdowns of the Walmarts in most of the states and cities where the Jade helm is going to be run. And we're finding out that these Walmarts have been made into military installation bases, and we found out also that Walmart has a contract with United States government and FEMA to act as temporary, temporary holding facilities until people can be moved from one location to another. There's a lot of theories on why they shut these Walmarts down, but the official story is that Walmart shut these down due to plumbing issues, and that was the official story. But basically we found out that was a lie because a majority of these have actually been turned into military bases. And I mean, that's not just conspiracy theory. That's actually conspiracy fact. So that is my take on Jade helm. I don't exactly know the outcome that they want. I mean, from studying this New World Order, Illuminati stuff, I could tell you where they're going with it and what they'd like to do with it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the final outcome or the final solution. But I believe they're going to be preparing for the economy collapse.
Yes.
There's other theories out there, too, and I'll just touch on one of the theories that, to me, is kind of scary, and it has a lot to do with a comet. There's a comet, supposedly, and they're preparing to strike the comet with nuclear possibility, with nuclear rockets and stuff. Now that's a theory. I don't know exactly if it's true, but they're saying that if this meteor does touch down on planet Earth, that it's going to be somewhere in the middle of the ocean near Venezuela, and that if this is the case, that if the size of this meteor supposedly, or the comet, is 2.5 miles, and that's quite a big meteor, right? Or comet, I should say. And if it does strike, it looks like they're possibly using the Jade helm to pre-position themselves to deal with this whole situation. And it's also kind of funny that the Pope is going to be in the United States at the United Nations during this time. This is like a historical event for the Pope to be here. So, I mean, there's a lot of dots that are on a lot of pieces to the puzzle. So, we're starting to get a better understanding of Jade helm and why it's being set up. But I truly believe it's mostly for the economy collapse that they have pre-planned already. So,
Daniel.
Yeah.
Do you know exactly what would the extent be of the damage from a meteor of that size?
Well, if a meteor hit the ocean, they're saying that it could have a effect of tsunamis all over the world, because if it hit the ocean and it's that size, it's probably not going to be 2.5 miles when it hits, because a comet is mostly a comet is a big ice ball. It's like a big giant snowball. So a lot of it's going to burn up before it hits the ocean. But if it's even half the size or even a quarter of the size, it could cause a tsunami up and down the east and west coast, and that's just America. That's the effect that they're saying this could have. Plus the possibility, if it, it could disturb the atmosphere, really bad. And I think that's another reason that the Pope is going to be coming to the United States talking about climate change and, all of that stuff. But,
please.
Yeah, like I said, there's some conspiracies out there, but if you look deep enough into this stuff, right now anything's a possibility. I mean, I haven't seen the asteroid, but there have been reports from supposedly high places that I've seen online that say that there's an asteroid out there ready to hit. I don't know. I mean, what exactly can you do? This is the question. What can you do if there is such an event? But anyways, I want to get into our main subject here. Kevin, we really appreciate you giving that report today. That was a big help for us. So anyways, our final subject here this evening is going to be the Patriot Act. And John McGuire is going to be introducing that here. John, are you still on the line with us?
I'm still on the line. I'm pulling it up right now.
Oh, excellent. Now, is there any specific website that you're going to be looking at?
I get automatic emails from Fox News, and so what they said yesterday was this. See if you can understand it. He said the Republican-led Senate blocked a House bill that would have ended the National Security Agency's explosive collection on domestic phone records. The Senate also failed to advance a 2-month extension of NSA programs. So it's like, sounds like good news, bad news, or bad news, good news to me.
Right, absolutely. So, is there anything else there that you think people need to know about?
Well, let me see the whole. I don't know. That's the summary, and then go to the website. They might have moved it down from yesterday.
Well, fellas, why don't we start from the beginning? Why don't you guys explain exactly what the Patriot Act is and what it does first?
Well,
go ahead, John.
Patriotic, so it makes us better Americans, right?
Yeah.
Joke.
Well, I just went over to Wikipedia, and I got some stuff here. Now, but I'll tell you my experience with the Patriot Act. Now, this is from my own personal thoughts and opinions on the Patriot Act. I've been following a lot of this stuff for a long time. This conspiracy kind of stuff, the stuff that the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about, right?
Right.
And what I know about the Patriot Act is this, that the Patriot Act was supposedly enacted because of 9/11. Everybody knows about 9/11. 9/11 was a supposedly terrorist act. We can go into the whole conspiracy of that as well. But the fact is, the Patriot Act was signed by George W. Bush the day before 9/11 happened. So, if the Patriot Act was supposedly legislation because of 9/11, why would the president sign this legislation the day before 9/11 happens? Sounds pretty fishy to me.
Yep.
Go ahead, John.
Fox News reported on the very day of 9/11, they said that Mossad had to have known. They knew Mossad knew, and they caught these, that's Israeli intelligence, and they caught these kids, they were connected to Mossad, Israeli intelligence, and they were all taking pictures and jumping for joy about the buildings coming down. So that was pretty suspicious. Then they just dug deeper and they figured out that there was all this suspicious crud going on. They were hiding out in mall kiosks selling stuff, but actually spying. They have more spies in this country than anywhere in the world. Anyway, and so I would think all their friends knew, like George W. Bush, good friend of Israel, right? That's my guess.
Well, 9/11 in itself is a topic that we can discuss. But what we're talking about here is the actual Patriot Act.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just saying why he might have known.
Right. Context. Oh, absolutely.
That would be why he signed it, right? Presumably, because he knew it was coming.
Well, either he knew it was coming, or I hate to say it, but he was a part of it, and that's what a lot of people believe.
Daniel, what's the difference? It's like what you were saying earlier, like, oh, these people are poisoning us, and they might be doing witchcraft too. It's like, well, how is that worse? I don't understand. How is it worse if he did it or if he knew it ahead of time?
Well, if he was a part of it, that would be worse than just knowing about it. There's a thing. If you know about something and you don't do anything to stop it, then you're probably a part of it. So, to me,
we have to assume that. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. We just have to assume. We can't afford to give these people any free rides on this. This is obvious.
Right. So here's the lowdown with the Patriot Act, okay? the Patriot Act in itself, if you look at the word Patriot Act, it wants you to believe that the Patriot Act is because you love your country and you're a patriot. So, and it's going to help us stop terrorism. But what we've learned from studying the Patriot Act over a long period of time is, the matter of fact, the Patriot Act was designed for American patriots, not to protect them, but to actually go after them, go after their gun rights, go after their constitutional rights. See, the Patriot Act temporarily suspends a lot of the rights that you have, freedom of speech, stuff like that. I don't exactly know all of them off the top of my head, but they know that this is, if you're considered an American terrorist, they have a whole list of criteria. I mean, one of the stupid criteria on the watch list is if you have blonde hair and blue eyes, and if you wear blue jeans. If you talk about the Constitution, you're considered a terrorist. If you're a Christian, if you're a Christian, you're considered a terrorist.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Maryland was coming up with this stuff, right?
What's that?
I think the University of Maryland was doing all this, weren't they? Or they have been involved in profiling, like what you're talking about.
I'm not exactly sure all the details of it, but I know that
veterans too. I mean, it's Memorial Day. Think about veterans.
Right. Well, it basically it takes away your habeas corpus. So if you are, you know what habeas corpus is, your right to basically habeas corpus is that right. Sorry, I'm stuck on a brain fart here. Habeas corpus is your rights, knowing your rights, basically, in court. If you don't have your habeas corpus, then you no longer have your rights in a courtroom, in a court of law. If you're deemed a terrorist, you don't have rights, and you're considered martial law. That's what the Patriot Act basically puts us under. It's a state of martial law.
They can imprison you long-term before taking you to court. I think that's habeas corpus, right?
Right, that's a part of it. They have to tell you your rights, and if they don't tell you your rights, you have no rights.
I think setting bail is part of that too. Like you can buy your way out until the court date.
Well, I'm not exactly sure of that, but yeah, it sounds interesting. Okay. So, anyways, that's my personal take on the Patriot Act. I'm glad that Rand Paul actually stood up in Congress and actually tried to do something about it. You were talking about the whole idea of the law. The Fox News just sent you something, right? You said they sent you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. I clicked on the link, and so Senate blocks House bill and NSA surveillance and 2-month extension. Well, I think they blocked the two. Wait. Yeah, they blocked both. So they blocked the House bill restricting NSA surveillance, but then they also blocked the 2-month extension. The heck does all that mean? Well,
the 2 months.
It says here, the Republican-led Senate blocked a House-passed bill and several short-term extensions of the USA Patriot Act early Saturday. The big stumbling block was a House-passed measure to end the National Security Agency's bulk collection of domestic phone records. Instead, the records would remain with telephone companies subject to a case-by-case review. Yeah, the phone companies have been working with Mossad, too. I should add that. And you can find that on the Fox News report as well. Well, you heard that whole thing, so you know. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell favored retaining the program, but fellow Kentuckian and Republican presidential contender Rand Paul blocked any extension, no matter how brief, past midnight 31st expiration date. So, woohoo! Now I didn't know what to think about Rand Paul. Honestly, I'm so glad Andrew Napolitano sort of gave him the vote of confidence, because that kind of helped me to discern what his character was. So, anyway,
yeah, I'm hoping Rand Paul runs for president. I like him.
Yeah, I would. The only way I consider voting is for him, frankly. Let's put it that way.
Well, honestly, I haven't been a big fan of Rand Paul's, and just after seeing what he did to his dad, kind of back in 2012, I'm not a big fan. But as a senator, he's the lesser of two evils, and I guess if I had to choose the lesser of two evils, I would choose Rand Paul as a senator, but I wouldn't choose Rand Paul to be my president. And the reason I say that personally is I don't trust a guy that would turn his back on his own father. During the presidential election, Rand Paul decided to endorse Mitt Romney and not endorse his own father. And I just feel that if you can do that to your own blood, your own flesh and blood, then to me, I can't trust you. If you're going to turn yourself on your own family to try to get some kind of future endorsements in the GOP, and as you can see, if you've been following anything about Rand Paul, you're going to find out that the GOP has basically been doing to Rand Paul what they did to his dad, back in 2012. They're basically ignoring the one guy that supposedly can beat Hillary Clinton. Now, does that necessarily mean that I still want to see Rand Paul in office? No, personally, no. I don't. I'd rather vote for Jesse the Body Ventura.
Good for him too. Do you really think he's a sellout? I mean, is it not possible, like his dad was in on it, or maybe his dad, kind of winked and said, okay, do what's expedient? I mean, was his dad at all? What I'm asking is, did it seem like a total betrayal, or might there have been more?
Well, there was definitely more to it. I mean, because Ron Paul has come around and said, hey, endorse my son, but I'm just personally, I personally, I'm not in favor of the guy. I just don't.
Do you think?
I mean, especially.
What do you think Andrew Napolitano's perspective was in saying that?
Well,
Andrew Napolitano.
Listen, you got to look at it this way. These people that are on Fox News, these people that are on the mainstream media, they're there for one reason, and it's not because they're good. I mean, yeah, Napolitano, maybe he says a few good things, and maybe he sounds really, really smart. But in reality, if he was if he was on the good guys team, do you really think he'd be on the mainstream news?
You got a point. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm kind of leery of anybody that is on the mainstream. So, I mean, you know how I feel about even alternative news. I mean, the New World Order and the Illuminati, they even said that they would pose as the leaders of the alternative media. I mean, just so you got to really question. I would say question everybody. There used to be a guy that I really liked back in the day, and he was an alternative media guy that when he first came out, man, this guy was awesome. And I think they got to him. And the reason I say that is his name is Mark Dice. I don't know if you ever heard of Mark Dice. But
well, Daniel, I disagree with that, man, because Mark Dice, he puts out videos constantly, all the time. And he's always bashing on mainstream media and talking about celebrities and different things going on. He talks about the Bohemian Grove. I mean, this guy talks about things that, you know, mainstream media would never cover. I don't think he's been corrupted, man.
Well, I've been listening to him for a long time, and when Mark Dice first came out, he was basically like, to me, he was a straight shooter. And because I've watched him over time, over a long, long period of time, I mean, the guy, he's over there, like, busting on a lot of things that I would consider to be straight shooters. Like, he'll bust on Alex Jones for some of the stupidest things. You know, like, just horrible talk, some mad smack about him. You know what I mean? And Alex Jones was the guy that gave Mark Dice his first break in this alternative media stuff. And then you're going to turn. Well, and then you're going to turn around and you're going to do that to Alex Jones after he's actually helped you out.
It seems to me like all Mark learned from Alex was how to be annoying. I don't think he does a better job. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I don't want to sit here and talk a lot of mad smack about people, but I have my suspicions, and I know that the New World Order and the Illuminati, they pretend. I mean, they talk about their people like the Masons. I hate to name organizations and stuff, but they actually have members that are members in churches. Christians that pretend they pretend to be Christians, and in reality, they're not Christians. They worship Lucifer, and at the highest order, they're running a lot of the mainstream churches, and they pose to run as world leaders.
What's that?
But I can't hear you. Go ahead.
I say wolves in sheep's clothing, and sometimes wolves in shepherd's clothing, which is worse.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And so that's what in closing, this is what we're dealing with the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act is literally wolves in sheep's clothing. So that basically it nails it right down. I mean, what we're looking at is legislation that's unconstitutional. It goes against every fiber and being of anybody that's a true patriot. And yeah, I'm glad that parts of it failed, but it's not. They've proven that the Patriot Act has not done anything to help this country whatsoever.
Right. Now, how does the Patriot Act itself support the invasion of personal privacy on civilians?
What's that? Because it allows the government to snoop in your email, to listen to your phone calls.
Mm-hmm. Now, I heard, isn't there certain keywords, like if you're on the phone and you're talking and you use a word like bomb or government, that it triggers. It's like a code word. It triggers for them to listen in.
Right. I'm going to play a little clip here of Ron Paul back in 2008. Ron Paul was talking about the Patriot Act.
Oh, okay.
This is some good
Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul spoke to a larger than expected crowd tonight at the University of Idaho in Moscow.
Reporter Cindy Shaw was there and has the latest on the Texas congressman's next move.
Ron Paul took center stage Friday night at the University of Idaho to a standing ovation. Paul began his speech with his main message, the message of liberty.
We're blessed to be able to live in a country as ours has been based on liberty, based on the Constitution, and based on the goodness of mankind.
He touched on foreign policy, unemployment, and a housing program, and even criticized Obama's Patriot Act.
The Patriot Act, one thing for certain, it is not patriotic.
Paul supporters came in all ages, but mainly young people who agreed with the libertarian candidate.
I think anytime we talk about war or those kinds of things, it becomes a little touchy subject, but I think the way he handled it, tackled it, was great. I'm not exactly online with him on all of his policies, but I think it's the best choice that we have now to get us out of the debt and the problems that we're in.
Paul concluded his speech by asking supporters to step up in the right direction and vote in the caucus next month. Paul's visit tonight in North Central Idaho is believed to be the first presidential candidate in at least 30 years. In Moscow, Cindy Cha.
So, I mean, I don't know, that was a little clip. I thought it would be a little bit better than that, you know. But I have Rand Paul's epic speech against the Patriot Act. Here's another good one, and it should definitely give us a little more insight.
I'm pleased today to come to the floor of the Senate to talk about the Patriot Act. I'm pleased that we have cracked open the door, that we will shed some light on the Patriot Act. I wish the door were wider open, the debate broader and more significant, but we will talk a little bit about the constitutionality today of the Patriot Act. Jefferson said that if we had a government of angels, we wouldn't have to care or be concerned about the power that we give to government. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't have angels in charge of our government. There have been times, even in our history, when government has invaded your household to take things from you. In the 1930s, government came into your household and said, give us your gold. Gold was confiscated in this country in 1933. Could there conceivably be a time when government comes into your house and says, we want your guns? Well, people say that's absurd. That would never happen. I hope that day never comes. I'm not accusing anybody of being in favor of that, but I am worried about a government that is sifting through millions of records without asking, are you a suspect? Without asking, are you in league with foreign terrorists? Are you plotting violent overthrow of your government? One of the provisions of the Patriot Act is called the library provision. They can look at the books you check out in the library. Well, people say, well, still a judge has to sign these warrants, but we changed the standard. The standard of the Fourth Amendment was probable cause. They had to argue or at least convince a judge that you were a suspect, that you were doing something wrong. Now the cause or the standard has been changed to relevance. So I don't know if I've been investigated. My visa bills sometimes have been $5,000. Sometimes we pay for them over the phone, which is a wire transfer. Have I been investigated by my government? I don't know. It's secret. What I want are protection. Just because we believe in procedural protections, just because we believe in the Constitution, doesn't mean that we don't want to capture terrorists. We just want to have some rules. I'll give you an analogy. Right now, you've been to the airport. Most of America has been to the airport at some point in time in the last year or two. Millions of people fly every day. But we're taking this shotgun approach. We think everyone's a terrorist. These are important constitutional questions. But when the Patriot Act came up, we were so frightened by 9/11 that it just flew through here. There weren't enough copies to be read. There was one copy at the time. No senator read the Patriot Act. It didn't go through the standard procedure. And look at what's happening now. The thing is with the Patriot Act is that it's so emotional because anyone who stands up like myself and says we need to have protections for our people, that we shouldn't sift through every gun owner in America through their records, looking and just trolling through records. Interestingly, we have looked at 28 million electronic records when the Inspector General looked at this. 28 million electronic records. We've looked at 1,600,000 texts. Now, if you said to me, well, they asked a judge and they thought these were terrorists, I don't have a problem. Judge gives them a warrant and they look at these text messages or electronic records. But do you want them trolling through your Facebook? Do you want them trolling through your emails? Do you want a government that is unrestrained by law? We can fight. We can preserve our freedoms. We are who we are because of our freedoms and our individual liberty. If we give that up, we're no different than those who we oppose. Those who wish to destroy our country want to see us dissolve from within. We dissolve from within when we give up our liberties. But I guess most of my message is that we shouldn't be fearful. We shouldn't be fearful of freedom. We shouldn't be fearful of individual liberty. And they're not mutually exclusive. You don't have to give up your liberty to catch criminals. You can catch criminals and terrorists and protect your liberty at the same time. There is a balancing act. But what we did in our hysteria after 9/11 was we didn't do any kind of balancing act. We just said, come and get it. Here's our freedom. Come and get it. I think we all want security. Nobody wants what happened on 9/11 to happen again. But I think we don't need to simplify the debate to such an extent that we simply say we have to give up our liberties. For example, I can't tell you how many times people have come up to me in Washington, other elected officials, and they say, we could have gotten Moussaoui, the 19th hijacker, if we'd had the Patriot Act. The truth of the matter is that we didn't capture Moussaoui because we had poor police work. And ask yourself, did we fire anybody after 9/11? We gave people gold medals. We gave them medals of honor for their intelligent work after 9/11. To my knowledge, not one person was fired. What did we do? We passed the Patriot Act and said, come and take our liberties, make us safe. But to make us safe, we shouldn't give up our rights to protect what we read, to protect what we view, to protect where we go and who we associate. We shouldn't allow government to troll willy-nilly through millions of records. So I would ask in conclusion that as these amendments come forward, that people think about it. Think about our constitutional protections, but don't go out and say that, the senator from Kentucky doesn't want to capture terrorists, or that the senator of Kentucky wants people to have guns and to attack us. Because the thing is we can have reasonable philosophic debates about this, but we need to be having an open debate process. We need to talk about the constitutional protections, the protections that protect us all, and we need to be aware of that.
Well, this is obviously that basically said quite a bit, and I think that definitely gives me a perspective.
The Bush administration says there have been no terrorist attacks on the United States since 9/11.
It definitely gives me a perspective a little bit more about Rand Paul.
42.
Gives me a better perspective on Rand Paul and what he believes about this particular thing. And that I like a lot about the guy. I can't say that I don't like Rand Paul. I like him, but I don't trust him. Basically, is where I'm at. And if I can't trust you, I don't want you to be my president. Is where I stand at it. So.
But we really have nobody else,
Well, I think I wouldn't say that there's nobody else. I just think it's more like we're not being told by the mainstream media who else is out there. I mean,
right.
When they give you two choices and they own both horses, they win both times, right? So I believe they own Rand Paul. And if Rand Paul ran, they would do what they did to Ronald Reagan. When Ronald Reagan won, he won because he was a popular guy. And it wasn't because of his politics. Because if Ronald Reagan ran as a Republican, but before he became a Republican, he used to have a nickname. His nickname was called Red Ronnie. Red Ronnie was because he was pretty much a communist, and he ran on a Republican ticket. And but
in other words, he never stopped being an actor.
Right, exactly. Well, what they figured out was they didn't really own Ronald Reagan. They didn't own the way he thought. They might have owned him partially, but he may not have been the Manchurian candidate that they wanted. So what did they do? They got their boy, who was the head of the CIA, to run for president, or vice president, right behind Ronald Reagan. And who was that? That was George H.W. Bush, or H. Bush. And so he was their asset. So that's what they would do with Rand Paul. to ensure that Rand Paul was not to be get out of line. They put somebody behind Rand Paul. And what did they do to Ronald Reagan? And as soon as Ronald Reagan didn't do everything they wanted him to do, they shot the guy. I mean, boom, he was out of there. And who did they have step up? George W. Bush, or George H. Bush. So they probably do the same thing to Rand Paul. They put somebody behind him that, you know, as their backup guy. So, anyways, here's another video. This is Ron Paul versus Gingrich on the Patriot Act debate. And this was a pretty good one. I remember I saw this back in 2000. I believe this was 2012. And it's a pretty good one, a debate on the Patriot Act. Ron Paul versus Gingrich. So here we go.
Terrorist attacks aimed at the United States have been thwarted since 9/11. Tools like the Patriot Act have been instrumental in finding and stopping terrorists. Shouldn't we have a long-range extension of the investigative powers contained in that act so that our law enforcement officers can have the tools that they need?
Speaker Gingrich, only this weekend there was an alleged terror plot uncovered in New York City. What do you think?
Well, I think that Attorney General Meese has raised a key point, and the key distinction for the American people to recognize is the difference between national security requirements and criminal law requirements. I think it's desperately important that we preserve your right to be innocent until proven guilty if it's a matter of criminal law. But if you're trying to find somebody who may have a nuclear weapon that they're trying to bring into an American city, I think you want to use every tool that you can possibly use to gather the intelligence. The Patriot Act has clearly been a key part of that, and I think looking at it carefully and extending it and building an honest understanding that all of us will be in danger for the rest of our lives. This is not going to end in the short run, and we need to be prepared to protect ourselves from those who, if they could, would not just kill us individually, but would take out entire cities.
So, Speaker, just to clarify, you wouldn't change the Patriot Act?
No, I would not change it. I'm not aware of any specific change it needs, and I'd look at strengthening it because I think the dangers are literally that great. And again, I spent years studying this stuff. You start thinking about one nuclear weapon in one American city and the scale of loss of life, and you ask yourself, what should the president be capable of doing to stop that? And you come up with a very different answer. Again, very sharp division. Criminal law, the government should be, frankly, on defense, and you're innocent until proven guilty. National security, the government should have many more tools in order to save our lives.
Congressman Paul, I suspect you disagree.
I do.
Tell us why.
I think the Patriot Act is unpatriotic because it undermines our liberty. I'm concerned, as everybody is, about the terrorist attack. Timothy McVeigh was a vicious terrorist. He was arrested. Terrorism still on the books, internationally and nationally, is a criminal. It's a crime, and we should deal with it. We dealt with it rather well with Timothy McVeigh. What I really fear it is we have drifted into a condition that we were warned against because our early founders were very clear. They said, don't be willing to sacrifice liberty for security. Today, it seems too easy that our government and our Congresses are so willing to give up our liberties for our security. I have a personal belief that you never have to give up liberty for security. You can still provide security without sacrificing our Bill of Rights.
I want to bring other things, but do you want to respond? Yeah. Timothy McVeigh succeeded. That's the whole point. Timothy McVeigh killed a lot of Americans. I don't want a law that says, after we lose a major American city, we're sure going to come and find you. I want a law that says, you try to take out an American city, we're going to stop you.
This is like saying that we need a police in every house, camera in every house, because we want to prevent child beating and wife beating. You can prevent crimes by becoming a police state. So you advocate the police state, yes, you can have safety and security, and you might prevent a crime, but the crime then will be against the American people and against our freedoms, and we will throw out so much of what our revolution was fought for. So don't do it so carelessly.
Con?
Amen. I agree with that, man. That's awesome what he just said there. There's a guy, his name is Chris Christie right now. He's trying to run for president. And this guy keeps saying that we need to give up our liberty for freedom. And I'm trying to find a video with him actually saying this. It would be really good. Chris Christie's. Anyways, it looks like they've actually trying to erase what Chris Christie said about giving up liberty for security off of YouTube. I'm not surprised at all that they've actually done that. But, yeah, so this was just recently Chris Christie was talking about giving up liberty for security. And, yeah, it's crazy that this guy is going to run for president.
He's doing a town hall event in New Hampshire.
But anyways, John, I remember earlier you were saying something about Edward Snowden and something about the Patriot Act. And I want to get back to what you were saying before we decide to close out the actual online meeting here.
Well, you already played the clip that he said. The two clips you played.
Oh, okay. So there was nothing else that you wanted to talk about with that then?
About Snowden? No. I hope he runs for president, though. Maybe he'd be a good candidate.
Yeah, that would be something else. I tell you what, somebody like Edward Snowden, who actually has the balls to actually speak up for freedom and truth, it'd be like the younger Ron Paul, you know.
Certainly
the
more
rebel.
In every way.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, Kevin, was there anything else that you wanted to say about this?
Yeah, I completely agree with Rand Paul. You should never have to sacrifice freedoms and liberty to provide security. It can be done without doing that. That guy, what he said at the end of that video kind of bothered me. He supported every state becoming a police state. That'd be a scary scenario.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
I definitely would not be in favor of that.
Well, you got to understand who that was. That was Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich is a Rhino Republican, and the Rhino Republicans are basically like modern day communists / Nazis, Nazi fascism. And he was once Speaker of the House. That means he was the most popular guy in the House, a Republican Speaker. And he was one of the most popular and powerful people in our country at one time. And he still does try to run for president. He tries to run on the old glory of who he used to be, but basically his time has come and went. And sure, he likes getting in the limelight, but he's never going to be president of the United States. He's basically like Ron Paul. His time has come and gone too. Even though I still vote for Ron Paul if he ran, even though he's 85 years old. You know?
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely a lot smarter than most of the people out there. But I got one last clip I want to play here. And this talks about Chris Christie wants a 9/11 style fear to rule all of our lives. This was presented by the Young Turks. Now, the Young Turks is a controversial website out there. They've become more of a mainstream kind of news program. But they also do talk about a lot of things the mainstream media won't talk about. So here's the Young Turks on Chris Christie and 9/11.
Chris Christie's doing a town hall event in New Hampshire because he thinks he's running for president. So he's going to talk about the NSA legislation. Now, Rand Paul, who's also running for president on the Republican side, for example, wants to rein in the NSA because he doesn't think that they should spy in on innocent Americans. Now, that's a position that a lot of people in the country agree with. In fact, a majority of the people in the country agree with that, liberals, conservatives, libertarians alike. But Chris Christie has the establishment position, which is, no, we must spy in on everybody. We have to assume people are guilty until proven otherwise, and we have to live in a constant state of terror. So he's going to explain that. Now, you're going to see this first clip here. It's going to look like he's actually on our side. Hold. All right, listen.
Demoralizing to me is I really think that there's so many sectors of our country who haven't forgotten 9/11. Everyone will always remember 9/11, but have forgotten what 9/11 felt like. I can remember a week afterwards, they canceled our kids' soccer games for a week. The next week, we had soccer again. I can remember standing on this big open field in our suburban town in New Jersey, and an airplane flew overhead, and we all jerked up and looked up. We never used to do that. And we don't do it now. We did it then. That's what I'm talking about. What did it feel like to us? That's what terror does to you. Terror changes not only the way you act, but the way you feel. It steals. All these people are talking about liberty. How did that attack steal our liberty? We acted differently. We conducted our lives differently. We were reticent. We were scared to do things as a people. That's a stealing of our liberty, too. And so that's why I feel so strongly about this intelligence part of it.
So it sounds like he's saying that don't let the terrorists steal our liberty, right? No, it turns out he's saying the opposite. He's saying, wasn't it great when we were scared out of our minds? And when there was a plane, it was awesome, it happened. Remember when the terrorists terrorized us? Wasn't that awesome? Okay, so now let me give you the rest of what he said so you understand the context. He said, quote, all these people are talking about liberty. How did that attack steal our liberty? We acted differently. We conducted our lives differently. We were reticent. We were scared. So not saying that in a way that's negative. He's saying, like, we were scared. It was great. Let's go back to being scared. Right after 9/11, we've forgotten how to get scared. Now he says, wait, now, hold on. There are going to be some who are going to come before you and are going to say, oh, no. This is not what the founders intended. The founders made sure that the first obligation of the American government was to protect the lives of the American people. So he's saying, look, I want the NSA to spy in on you guys because we should all be as scared as we were the week after 9/11 and make sure that we safeguard us. Now, people object and say the Founding Fathers were in favor of liberty, but actually they wanted to make sure that they protected our lives, that was more important. Well, all right, let's go to a Founding Father and see if that's true or not. Oh, look at this. I've got a quote from Patrick Henry. Give me liberty or give me death. So now he's not done yet. He's not convinced about that. So now let's show you what he said after.
And we can do this in a way that's smart and cost-effective and protects civil liberties. But, you can't enjoy your civil liberties if you're in a coffin.
You can't enjoy your civil liberties if you're in a coffin. In other words, oh, my God, I'm going to go. This guy is proud of basically being a bedwetter, right? He's so panicked. Oh, I'm so scared that the terrorists are going to terrorize me. Let's take away my liberties. I don't want to be in a coffin. Now, he said this in the great state of New Hampshire, where the motto is, live free or die.
You and I were talking about this earlier. I'm actually really surprised at how stupid Chris Christie is. No, you and I agreed before. We were talking about it, and we thought he was
somewhat clever in the sense that politically he might be able to get ahead in a Republican primary. He could push the right buttons. He has that facade of like, I'm a tough guy and I'm a straight talker. No, it turns out he's flailing in the wind. He doesn't know what he's doing. He literally said the opposite of what the Founding Fathers said, and he thought, I'm making a great point that you need to hear.
No, but we're not done beating up on Chris Christie. Let's show more videos that make more fun of him. This is the debate in Congress right now. Different courts have expressed their views on the program, too. But right now, that debate is dominated by intellectual purists worried about theoretical abuses that have not occurred, instead of the real threats that we've already seen from Garland, Texas, to Fort Dix, New Jersey. You're an ordinary, law-abiding American. This legislation has absolutely no effect on you, except for this. It could prevent the next attack from taking place in our country, for killing our fellow citizens. Absolutely no one has one real example of our intelligence services misusing this program for political or other nefarious purposes.
That's my response. I have a few examples here, Chris. Let's see. The NSA spied on Congress, Xbox Live, because they thought the Taliban was using it. Here's one of my favorites. They spied on porn habits to discredit radicalizers. They spied on the Pope, the Vatican, French citizens, the president of Brazil, because why not, their exes. In fact, they even had a name for it. It was Love Int. So an NSA person would be spying on their ex, and the other NSA guy would be, I'm going to go grab a sandwich. You want to come with me? No, I'm spying on my ex, dude. It's all right. It was so common that they had a name for it, Love Int. Everybody was doing it. And also, an audit of the NSA found 2,776 violations in 1 year alone. But as Chris Christie says, there was no abuse. They weren't doing anything wrong.
Yeah, but Kyle, can you name a single instance?
Only 2,776.
All right, one more, Christie. When Edward Snowden revealed our intelligence secrets to the world in 2013, civil liberties extremists seized that moment to advance their very own narrow agenda. They want you to think that there's a government agent listening in every time you pick up the phone or Skype with your grandkids. They want you to think our intelligence community are the bad guys. Let's be clear. All these fears are exaggerated and ridiculous.
I wonder what he would have called Patrick Henry. Civil liberties extremist. I believe give me liberty or give me death is as close to extremist as you get. How does anybody use that term and think that they're making a good point? The only position that makes sense, either you believe in civil liberties or you do not. To call somebody a civil liberties extremist means he's saying, if you believe in civil liberties, you're an extremist. No, but I love this because this is the party that runs on freedom. We're America. We believe in freedom, right? Unless you're a freedom extremist.
Oh, I love it. That was great. So I'm glad that I picked up that extra clip there about Chris Christie, because I don't like the guy. He's definitely an extremist when it comes to trying to take away our freedoms. He's straight up working for the Illuminati New World Order. I mean, the guy hangs out with the President of the United States and, hugs him and does all this stuff with the President. Oh, he's still there, guys.
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. I think our program may have just ended. Because I'm saying that because my computer just shut down, but you know what? That's okay, because if we're not recording anymore and it just stopped recording, it just stopped right at the end of that particular Chris Christie YouTube video, which is fine.
Okay.
So, perfect timing. But, and also, so that's what I'm saying, man, is we're surrounded right now, but at the same time, I don't know if you ever seen the cartoon. It was called Ants back in the day. It was a Disney flick.
Yeah.
there was this grasshopper, and there were ants. And anyways, the grasshoppers, they were these big, mean-looking grasshoppers, and they used to go fly around to the ants' nest. They would pick on the ants, steal their food and everything. And then, anyways, if you watch the movie, you see the guy, big ant boss, say, hey, if these guys basically ever figure out, that there are a hell of a lot more of them than there are of us, then, we're basically dead meat here, And that's my feeling as well, man. I think because, we definitely have these Illuminati guys outnumbered. Like, I would say 1,000 to 1, if not more than that.
Oh, yeah.
And, strategically, they have the strategic. Okay, they have the how would you say? They have the gunpowder. They have the position. So even though we're outnumbered, they have strategically they're placed in a pretty good position of power. But I believe that our views are way better than what they ever have. These guys are, they're serving the devil. And, I know the end of the story. And the end of the story turns out good for the free people, but not so good for those who are on the side of the devil. The Lucifer, the Antichrist, the darkness. It never turns out good for these guys. Right now, they might have the upper hand. They might have the positions of power. They might have all these things that they think they're going to win, but in reality, they're not going to win. There's no way they can win. Temporarily, they're going to be. It looks bad, but you know what? In my experience in life, things are only bad for a moment. They don't last bad, and they're not bad forever. So that's my take on this whole situation today with the Patriot Act and all this nonsense. But anybody else have anything else that they would like to say? No? Beautiful. All right. Well, hey, anyways, it's been fun, guys, and I appreciate you guys joining the program today, giving your takes and sharing some of the stories here with us. And so we'll do the same thing next week. And I can't wait to talk to you guys. And if you want to do the same situation that we did this week, pick out a couple stories and review them, and we'll go over those things, and we'll make a show of it. Sure. And I guess we'll have to figure out a topic for the week to choose from for next week. Anyways, appreciate you guys joining us today. And anybody else, we'll see you on YouTube. Take care, God bless, and good night.